Camera off. I'm a little under the weather, so I hope that's okay.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Permanent Public Building Committee on Monday, June 26th. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 main topics tonight. We are doing a remote meeting, so we'll follow the normal procedures that we have been for voting, roll call, and everything else. At this point, we might as well start with the first agenda item, which is approve the last meeting minutes. I don't know if we have a quorum for that, Catherine.
Yes, we do.
We do, because was Roy Ann or what? Okay, great. All right, so I put forth a motion to approve the last meeting minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard.
Aye.
George.
Aye.
Irwin.
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay. Thank you. All right, now to the first of the 4 main topics. We're going to go to the library space utilization study. And do I turn that over to you, Hank?
Yes, I'll start. Over the last month, the library trustees have received 2 presentations and given input as to their priorities, looking at potential phased projects. And I'll turn it over to Brett and you, Teal, to walk through the slideshow that I distributed to you over the weekend and let them enumerate what those priorities are now. And Kim, you can chime in as well if you'd like.
Thanks, Hank. We also have Erhard from the library trustees on the line. And I'm going to share my screen. Get this going here. Hold on. Of course, I have to change my security preferences. Always something.
And I can share my screen if that's helpful.
I think I'd rather do it. So looks like I have to log back in. Sorry, everybody, for that. Just give me 1 more minute. I made a couple of tweaks to the presentation, Hank, so I'd like to present if I can. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
So Erhard, the trustees did go through a lengthy discussion twice on the schemes, and I guess you formally voted, did you, at the last meeting?
Yeah. So we looked at all of the potential changes that we could make to the library based on the kind of programming recommendations that Brett and the team at UTEAL have kind of been proposing across the series of proposed floor plans. We looked at each of those and had a conversation within the trustees first about kind of identifying what are those kind of individual projects that we might take as priorities, to say we want to kind of make sure we do this and then this and then this. And we did that in consultation with Kim. And then we launched a survey where we ranked those priorities among all of the trustees, aggregated that feedback data, and had a final conversation at our last meeting, in which we voted then on a set of the top 4 priorities that we really wanted to emphasize with UTEAL kind of in a phased approach to potential floor plan changes. And those 4 are kind of a teen tween area, the Rosemary entrance, the children's area, and the Highland entrance. And Brett will give us some more, I think, detail as to what we mean by those 4 priorities, and how those might look as potential program shifts that we'd like to put in place over the next several years, perhaps.
Great. Thanks, Erhard, for covering me there while my Zoom was getting updated. So thanks everybody for being with us tonight. My name is Brett Benson. I'm a principal at UTL. It's nice to be with you virtually tonight. We last spoke to all of you on April 10th. Tonight's agenda is going to be broken into 4 parts. We'll review the project with you, review the priorities that we've identified with the library and its trustees. We're going to show you a planned study of these improvements, and we'll also review a few additional considerations that have informed some of our thinking. We've been working with Hank from the town of Needham and Kim Hewitt, the director of Navitri, the assistant director of the Needham Free Public Library, also working very closely with Erhard and the other trustees. And on the UTL side, we have Marissa Peralta, our project manager, and Claudia Porras, who's here with us tonight. And before we go too far in, I just want to review some of the framework studies goals. So the first one was to identify the constraints and the opportunities in the library's space utilization. And you know, what people expect from libraries have changed in the 17 years since the Highland Avenue Library was renovated and expanded. We discussed this at our last meeting. 17 years, it's a pretty short amount of time in the life of a public building, but it's nearly a generation in the life of the people using it. And people really have different and greater expectations about what a library needs to be in terms of the programs that are offered and the types of spaces needed and access to technology. Second one is we engage with residents, library patrons, staff, library trustees, the friends of the library, and many other interested stakeholders to hear directly what the library does well, what needs to be expanded, and what's missing. And thirdly, develop and refine a concept to improve the library's layout to meet the needs of the next 20 years. So we've received feedback throughout the study from a number of stakeholders and in a variety of formats. The trustees have provided feedback and instruction at their last 3 meetings in April, May, and earlier this month. We've met with all of you twice now. We've also met with library staff, stakeholders, and patrons throughout the study to gather feedback in person, both by Zoom and through an online survey. And our study is broken into 4 design phases, plus a phase for producing the final report. And we're close to the end of the concept options refinement phase. In February, we performed a facility assessment and we launched our engagement with stakeholders. In March, we started to develop a building program and we developed conceptual floor plans, test ideas generated through the engagement. In April and May, we refined these conceptual plans into a series of options and we presented them here at the PPBC and to the library trustees. And then we took a month break while the trustees digested these options and they gave us direction on their priorities. So our goal tonight is to review the priorities with you so we can get your approval to work with our cost consultant to generate conceptual pricing. And then we'll generate a draft report once that pricing is complete, and we'll be back later in the summer to review the draft with all of you. As we discussed in April, we used 3 approaches to understand the issues and to engage with stakeholders. So first, we spent a lot of time in the library, both on tours with Kim and the library staff, as well as quietly observing while working from the reading rooms. We launched an online survey that we translated into 4 languages to reach a broad audience. And we spent time with smaller groups of similar age participants to supplement the survey data. And at their June meeting, the library trustees identified their 4 highest priority changes to the layout of the library. These priorities are listed in order of importance, and the intent is to limit the scope so that the library can remain open during construction and the capital costs fit within a defined range. So on this slide, we have the existing patron-facing floor plans color-coded by use, so the first and the second floor. The community room, the general collection, and the children's area occupy the lower level. The general collection and the teen area occupies the upper level. In practice, teens and tweens spread throughout the upper level because their space is inadequate. And here you can see the areas of the library that we're focusing on with each priority. So priority number 1 is on the upper level to right size the teen and tween space and provide greater acoustic separation from the rest of the library. Priority 2 is on the lower level to improve the children's area. Priority number 3 improves the Rosemary entrance and the circulation desk, and it creates a new multipurpose room. And then priority 4 improves the Highland entrance and the reference desk. So looking at each of these priorities in greater detail, We're proposing to expand the footprint of the teen area and create a new dedicated tween collection. The area dedicated to teens and tweens will better reflect the current and the expected future use of the library. And we're trying to balance it with other uses on this floor. The layout of the space is designed to provide a more distinct enclosure around the teen and tween area to better define the spaces allocated to the different user groups. Ideally, the area would be separated from the rest of the library through glass partitions, and we're going to be studying the cost impacts of that in this option. The existing enclosed young adult room will remain, but the millwork will be removed to allow space for programming. And as part of this study, we're going to review the HVAC system in this room to address the overheating problems that are happening throughout the summer. This layout also creates 2 new enclosed study rooms, one for the teens and one for general use. The next priority is to improve the children's area. So in this one, the children's reference desk moves into a more central location to improve the sight lines, both for the patrons coming into the space and for the librarians to better monitor all areas of the space, including those upper level stacks that are in the basement of the original historic building. We're also proposing reconfiguring the program areas and providing new furnishings that are better suited to how the space is currently used. This includes a play area with seating at a comfortable distance for caregivers to monitor what kids are doing while still having a measure of privacy. And we're also creating a wellness room adjacent to the existing bathrooms. The Rosemary entrance improvements include reconfiguring the circulation desk so it has better visibility from the main entrance and better sight lines to the general collection to the north, which is on the right side of the slide here. Relocating the circulation desk and consolidating some of the staff space with the children's area makes room for a new multi-purpose room and attached storage closet. The room can accommodate 24 students and an instructor in a classroom format, or more than that for a meeting setup. The storage closet is really key for flexibility so that furniture can be moved in and out for various configurations. And this type of space is really missing from the library. We think it's going to open up a whole new world of programming that can't currently be offered. And finally, the Highland entrance improvements include relocating the reference desk to a more prominent and central location on the upper floor. The reference workrooms enlarged for a more efficient workspace, and new seating areas are created behind the new reference desk and to the south of the computers. And the world languages shelving is consolidated into a more linear layout. In the course of the study, we identified a number of improvements that could be undertaken without capital funding, and we just wanted to make sure that we documented them here and for the final report. So these include creating a sensory room in place of the undersized story area, as well as a new terrace off of the upper floor children's stacks area. And on the upper floor, the history and genealogy collection could be reorganized to make room for a medium-sized, say 8 to 12 person conference room. So overall, the 4 priorities we've identified would increase the seat count by about 20 seats, or approximately 5%, and would reduce the shelf area by less than 1%. There are a few additional considerations that we've been keeping in mind as we've been studying the options. First and foremost, the library really is a beautiful design, and we don't want to lose some of the essential qualities of the space by making these improvements. So in terms of daylighting, we think that there's a number of strategies that we could employ at the teen and the tween area to maintain that sense of light and openness in the library. We imagine a full height glazing could be used at the edge of the teen area where it borders the main stair and that central clerestory. And then partial glazing, such as transoms, could be used at the study rooms. And there's a number of strategies that we'd employ for acoustics. These include isolation through glass or solid partition walls to help control noise transmission between spaces like the teen and the tween areas, or the multipurpose room and the study rooms. Sound masking, which is essentially white noise speakers mounted in the ceiling, can be employed at more open spaces, such as computer areas or more casual work areas. And then sound absorbing materials to control noise within a space can be used at the multipurpose room or study rooms in the quiet reading areas. All right, so just to wrap up, I wanted to bring the schedule back up on the screen. So again, our next step is to go to the cost estimator, assuming that we get the thumbs up from all of you about these 4 priorities. and then start in on a draft report before we start coming back to you later this summer for additional feedback. Thanks, everybody. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks. And just to watch time, we've got an agenda till 7:50. We probably can go over a little bit, but we have explored much of this. Open it up for questions, obviously, but I think we don't need to re-architect it. But Erwin, go ahead. And then Roy.
Thank you. Quick question on the costing that you're going to provide. Will there also be costs for the additional considerations that you talked about at the end of your presentation?
We can talk to Hank a little bit more about that. We were not thinking that we would put a cost estimate number to that, mainly because we think they could be done at a lower level of cost that wouldn't require capital funding. We've been talking about with Kim and Erhard potential other funding around some of those things. They tend to be more kind of furniture oriented.
And
Even
they
the
might,
glazing, even the glazing of windows and that sort of thing?
no,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Hank.
The glazing would be part of the alternative 1, 2, 3, and 4. But the additional ones would largely leave the existing walls and be relocating some of the collection, for instance, in the history and genealogy room, or combining it or somehow reducing that so that new furniture could be put in there to make it function as a meeting space as well. There was also talk about taking the history and genealogy collection and potentially moving it over to the Bosworth room. All of those could probably be done within the operating budget, I understand. Likewise downstairs, the reprogramming of creating a sensory room in the story room, the thought on that is it would largely be furniture, and there's potential grant funding associated with that. The outdoor space would require some cost. And relative to that, I was going to look back to the amphitheater that was installed over Sunita Williams and just get a general idea of what those costs were as a potential plug number for that exterior space.
Thank you.
Roy.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the update. I have just a couple of questions. One is, in creating the teen and tweens area, my sense is that the teens are still going to go where they want, even though you create an area for them. And is that problematic in any way in the plan? And I guess the flip side of that question is, have you got initial feedback on these ideas? Have you run these back by some of these similar audiences to get feedback on the evolution?
Thanks for those questions. I'll answer in reverse order. We have not had a chance yet to go back to any of the folks that we engaged with, other than Kim and Dimitri, and of course the library trustees on these. The trustees met, I think, a week and a half ago to develop these priorities. So we're kind of, right in the thick of things here, presenting this to all of you. I think you're right that the teens and tweens will go where they want to go, especially that kind of age group tends to articulate, what they want to do on their own. We do think that providing a more right-sized space is going to make a big difference. The existing space is just vastly undersized for the need. And then on top of that, as you know, the enclosed young adult room, even only maybe a third of that space is actually usable. We've only ever seen maybe 4 kids in there at a time using it. And
I think if you don't call it young
space.
adult and teens and tweens, you're probably better off. And my only other question was, I really like the multi-purpose room. But is there a way you can make that multi-purpose room designed, and you don't have to answer this here, so that when it's not being used, it almost like the doors could potentially swing, that it could have a flow into the other space? so that it doesn't have this underutilized purpose when it's not being used, so it's just something to think about, because my concern is it's great when you want a multi-purpose room as long as you can seal it off, but all those other times it might have some other benefit if you can make it flexible. Just a thought.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Roy. Anybody else? Any other question?
Quick
George?
question, if I could.
Yep.
What kind of was the response by the trustees unanimous? Was there pushback in any area? Was there any disagreement among them in terms of what the priorities ought to be?
Erhard, I'll let you answer that.
Sure, yeah. So I compiled the survey results, and I think that the ones that won out as the top four, although they were actually split out, the teen and tween room were separate in the ranking that we did for the survey. Those roughly align with the priorities that we saw across the different trustees. And of course, we had a chance to follow on the discussion afterwards before we voted on them, in which we kind of talked, especially with Kim, in terms of thinking about what this would mean for the library. That these four areas are key because they really use the footprint that already exists as much as possible, while opening up new opportunities for use. And so we wanted to kind of have that high leverage ability with the things that we were looking at. And we really saw this kind of circulation desk and reference desk and the children's area refresh and the teens and tweens, especially teens and tweens as number one. That was clearly the standout number one in terms of unlocking a lot of opportunities across the rest of the library programming. And I want to turn it over to Kim, because Kim's been thinking a lot about some of these other related questions about how we make sure that the kind of this starts a kind of cascade of opportunities for the library, which the trustees agree with.
Yeah, so I don't want to take too much time, so let me know kind of when I'm getting too long-winded, but we definitely were thinking a lot about the cascading effect, like Erhard mentioned, about kind of having a space for teens and tweens. The idea is to make it the most appealing place for teens and tweens to go. I think you'll see some spread still, but we're hoping to kind of capture that in this one place. And the trustees really seem to be in agreement with all of these four priorities. Like Erhard said, it was about 6 really that we combined into 4, worked with Hank and UTL to make sure they could be done sort of as 4 things. And then there are things like the sensory room that we see being able to do like within the year through other funding sources that we have available to us. And just, it really just unlocks a lot of potential for the library. And one of the bigger things that is missing is that multi-purpose space. So I'm interested to see what we can do with that too.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Let's try and wrap up because we do have one voting item. And but Hank, I think the question is the question that you've asked is, do we say yay, okay, and allow them to go forward? Is that what's really the first question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that you need to vote, but consensus would be helpful.
Committee members, in terms of letting them go forward on these 4 options, any objections? Let's just go that way. Any objections? Hearing none, I think we are okay, and consensus is to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Okay. With that, we do have one voting item, one invoice for UTL. I'd like to shift to that and put forth an invoice for approval, which is the UTL May 2023 services for $6,200 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. In terms of voting, we'll do a roll call. Erhard, you're representing the user group, correct? And Kim?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Hearing no questions, seeing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Erhard,
Aye.
Kim,
Aye.
Roy.
Aye.
Thank you. And the chair is aye. I've got everybody. Okay, great. All right, with that, thank you very much. Good presentation. I think very informative. And I would say, you know, this process all along has been very good. I know you guys got some challenges in the library financially for these kind of type projects, but certainly great work and nice to be able to see the clarity that's been presented.
Thank you.
So thank you very much tonight, and we'll now shift.
Thank you, everyone.
to The next agenda item, the second of the four, RTU replacement, and I believe I will turn that to either Barry or Hank.
Yeah, I'll start off.
Okay.
GGD has taken the comments back that came from the committee at our last design development review, and in particular looked at the issue related to the impact inside the building of structural reinforcement underneath rooftop unit number 2. Rooftop unit number 2 is the largest of the 4 units. And in the design development set, it required welding and impacted interior spaces. And so GGD went back, reviewed the options with their structural engineer, and have come up with a solution that doesn't require any interior structural work for that unit. And Matt, I guess I'll turn it over to you to get into some of those details.
Thank you, Hank. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so here you have, it looks probably familiar from last meeting, except we moved a few things around, and I'll zoom right in on RTU2 here. So previously, we had a larger packaged air source heat pump serving RTU2. This is the largest of the 4 existing units. The package solution needed to be custom and was turning out to weigh more than the existing unit. And therefore, the structural engineer determined that additional supports were required. We reviewed all that last time. So we decided to shift gears and try a different approach. So what we have here is a less custom solution where it's a split air handling unit with air source heat pump capabilities through 3 VRF condensers, these ACCs, air-cooled condensing units. So those are now the source of heating and cooling energy for RTU2. And splitting the unit up like this allows us to reduce the weight and remove all of those structural upgrades that were going to be required. It would have been a lot of added costs, and we were exploring different ways to get away from that. So in reviewing with the structural engineer, we're able to match up pretty evenly with the existing duct penetrations in the roof. The acoustical screen seen here in a very light gray line is existing, and it's supported by posts that come up through the roof and attach to the existing structure, which I will now switch to the structural drawings. And there's a detail of what the support is going to look like here. So here's your acoustical screen where my cursor is. That's existing. There are existing interior supports for that vertical screen that come and attach to these posts. So what we're going to do for support of these new condensers is utilize those existing posts that are already up through the roof. And we're just going to put a couple beams across those existing posts. And that's where the condensers are going to be supported. RTU2 will get a new curb. There are no structural upgrades needed beneath the new RTU system. The only thing is it does need a new roof curb, whereas RTU 1, 3, and 4 will utilize adapter curbs just because their footprint more closely aligns with what is there existing. And so that's RTU2. So there will be, in making this change, you know, previously we had DX cooling, and I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. I said air source heat pump. It was DX cooling and electric resistance heat, as I had reviewed with you all in the past. This is now an air source heat pump system, and therefore there'll be rebates available and associated with this system, whereas previously none of the RTUs had any Eversource or utility incentives associated with them. So this will carry some incentive for the project, as well as the air source heat pump if it is accepted as the alternate number 1. That will also carry rebates or incentives from the utility company. So as you'll notice, air source heat pump 1 was previously shown up on this roof. The dunnage situation required for mounting this air source heat pump that was becoming cumbersome up on this roof because of all the existing utilities. So we began exploring this lower roof, which is already supporting the RTUs. And so we do have a plan in place. We're just trying to land on a final location. This is where we'd like to see the air source heat pump. I'm currently working with the structural engineer to determine how close we can get to that. But here's what that will look like is 4 posts up from existing structure beneath, and a couple of W12 by 22s to support that air source heat pump. So we're working to try and get that in between RTUs 4 and 3. That is yet to be determined, but I will have an update on that soon. The other update I have is that the acoustical study was completed. So the acoustical consultant set up a monitor or multiple monitors around the site and surveyed the noise, the ambient noise over a 48-hour period. We're not allowed to exceed the existing noise decibel level at the property line by more than 10 decibels with any new construction in Massachusetts. So they had to study and make sure that we weren't going to exceed that limit. They have come back with their study results, and the only mitigation required is some downturned hoods on RTU2, which is not going to be an issue. It's hardly even a cost item, cost add. So that's very good news, and we're moving ahead to get to the bid documents.
So I should note that when we went through the feasibility stage, we looked at the option of separating out air source heat pumps from all of the rooftop units. And the cost was greater than, almost 50% greater than, taking the approach to put in just electric reheat, resistance electric reheat within the units. So we anticipate that the cost, which the cost estimators are currently working on, the cost for this RTU2 will probably increase from around $900,000 to roughly, I'm going to say 1.3 million. The rebate opportunity is in the 200,000 range. We'll have a better handle on this once we get the actual cost estimates back. But it seems to us, even though it won't necessarily be a cost savings from what we looked at previously, it will be more doable in the short window of one summer to complete the work. And we may need to go back to town meeting and request that any rebates be reappropriated toward the project, because the next project in 2024, the summer of 2024, will be the Broadmeadow School. We'll have a better handle on those cost estimates by the end of the month. And we'll be coming back to the committee once we have those in hand. I don't know if there are questions. We could take those. Our next topic will be appointing the pre-qualification committee to review and shortlist or pre-qualify HVAC companies who would act as the prime in the construction.
So I have a question. Can I ask it?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
So the question that I have is actually for Barry. Barry, is this approach that we're taking, I know it certainly is going to save money in the project cost, and I like the solution, but it's what I was hoping for. So that's great. Is this going to cost any more in terms of your work to maintain things in the future? Or is it about a wash?
Well, George, it depends on if you're referring to what I'm paying now to maintain the 4 units that are up there now, which is excessive because they're old and broken and we're constantly
Right.
chasing leaks. I mean, I don't see any more than what I'm paying now. We should see less if these units are installed correctly and they're operating correctly, and the program, the design itself is that we continue to operate these things the way they're designed. We should
Right.
not see an increase in cost. We're still going to have to maintain them. These are they're brand new systems. We're going to have very qualified people watching them, maintaining them. The building management system should be able to operate these autonomously in the background for the most part, but we're still going to have to provide maintenance on them, changing filters, belts. So there is going to be a cost to maintain.
But no more than it would have if these current units were functioning like new units. Certainly, I expect that the old ones require more
Yeah.
tender loving care. But I'm talking about the difference in designs. It sounds to me like, well, because it's new, it's going to require a little less, but the routine maintenance isn't going to be any more.
Yeah, the routine
it's
maintenance
just-
isn't going to be any more. There are some components that are more expensive to replace if they're damaged or they're broken or they fail. Aside from the components being more expensive and the technology being more advanced, it shouldn't cost any more for us to be able to maintain these units with filter changes, belts, and things like that.
Okay, good. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Barry, will likely be reducing the energy demand costs because we'll be taking all of the gas off the roof. So those units, and we'll be putting in the energy recovery wheels in each of the units. Or is that a wash?
I can't speak on that. I mean, there's those numbers, the data when it comes to energy costs for gas versus these VRF systems. And obviously there's an increase in electrical consumption with these systems because we don't have gas anymore. We have resistive heat, electricity. Hopefully these heat wheels do keep up with the demand as they're designed to. And so I guess at the end of the day, theoretically, we should see a reduction in energy consumption. Yes.
And it would be most evident if we were able to put in the air source heat pumps that take over the reheating during the summertime, so you don't have to keep the existing gas boilers going through the summertime.
Right. I can't avoid that. They have to stay on because of the method of cooling that we use, subcooling. We have to warm up the frigid air going into the spaces. So yes, in theory, yes, we should see a reduction in consumption.
So the other hurdle that we have to overcome on this is whether we will, once we get the actual bids in hand for the ad alternate, whether we take it and proceed with that work, or whether we defer and reserve monies for the Broad Meadow. It's very possible that we're going to have to go back to town meeting for additional funding. Most likely if we do take the ad alternate, but even possibly with the way it's currently designed. We won't know that until we have the bids in hand.
Yeah, if we can't afford the ad alternate, I'm still replacing one of those boilers with the condensing boiler. So it's just more efficient because it's going to be a new boiler. So even if I have to use a gas-fired boiler, it's going to be a better machine than the ones that we're currently using. They're more efficient.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Anything you need us to make a decision on other than the invoices? Invoices, and then also the selection of the pre-qualification committee. And recommending that the pre-qual committee include Barry, Ken Sargent, David Billings from Hill. Hill has been doing the pre-qual paperwork so far, and Matt DeSalvo. So that would have those 4 people reviewing the pre-qualifications that come in for the HVAC contractors. Yep. And I would like we need a formal vote on that, appointing that pre-qual committee. Anybody else from the PDC committee that should be on it? I mean, Barry's basically covering it, right?
If you want someone on the committee, I can do it if you want. But if it's not necessary.
Yeah, I think we're covered as long as Barry is on it because he's a
Sure.
user rep. And so
Right.
technically he's a member of the committee for this project.
Sure.
Okay. All right, if there's no other feedback, I will put forth a vote for the selection of the pre-qual committee as named by Hank. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you, Roy. Any further questions, comments? Okay, with that, we'll do the roll call. I see nothing. Okay, roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
I,
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
aye,
Barry?
Aye.
Ann, you're on, right?
Yes, I.
Okay, and the chair is aye. Okay, great. All right, with that, we'll now move to the invoices. We have 2 invoices. I'm just going to group them together simply because they're on the same budget. The first invoice is the GGD Consulting Engineers for April 2023, 100% Elliott DD services. And the second invoice in that grouping is the GGD Consulting Engineers for May 2023 for 50% of the Elliott CD services. The first invoice is $70,500. Second one is $63,450 for a total of $133,950 coming out of the engineering budget. Do I hear a second?
second,
Thank you, George. Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George? I think I heard an aye.
I,
Oh, sorry. Thank you. There's a little bit of a IP burp there. Erwin,
Aye.
Roy,
aye,
Ann,
I.
Barry,
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Great. That closes down the RTU.
Yeah, I just want to express my thanks to David Billings, who's been leading the charge on getting all the prequals in, and then also they are currently working with AF Fogarty to get the second cost estimate
Right.
for the construction documents. So
Right.
thank you, David.
Yep, no problem. We've got 6 respondents so far in the pre-qual, so it looks good.
Great.
So
Are those 6 respondents likely to participate or?
you never know until you actually get the SOQs in hand and you go through the process. But
Is this market really tough to get them to bid, or has it slowed down a little bit so that?
I think
it's
it's
more-
slowed
more
down a bit. It's still a pretty tight market and there's still delays in getting materials. But I think getting 6 people interested is a good sign.
That's good. Sounds good to me. If we can get them to bid.
Yeah, yes, we will do our best to get that.
Great. Okay, with that, we're gonna close down the RTU. I'm gonna ask if I could, before we go to the next topic, we do have other invoices, Emery Grover, because Ann, you're part of the user for so if I may, because I don't know if you'll be on the NHS one, ask committee if there's any objections to just get these 2 invoices done. I don't see any
do it.
objections. There are 2 invoices. I'm going to group them together for the Emery Grover. There are the BH&A May 2023 services for $17,372.88. And the second one of that batch is the BH&A May 2023 Grover for the FF&E services for $12,500. Total is $29,872.88 coming in the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you, Roy. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Going to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Berwin,
Aye.
Roy,
aye.
Ann,
Aye.
and the chair is aye. Thank you.
And Barry.
Oh,
No,
and
Barry's
Barry.
not on
Barry,
that.
you on that one
It's
too?
Michael Grice who's on it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's Michael, that's what I thought too. Okay, great. That takes care of the Emery Grover. If I also can just do one more invoice, which totals finalizes all the invoices tonight. The CAF space study. And I think, Ann, you're part of that group too?
No.
I don't think
Barry
so, no.
is.
Barry, you are. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so quickly, we have an invoice for BH&A for the May 2023 CAF study for $1,300 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, come to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
chair is aye. Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now we will go to the third of the 4 main topics, the NHS boiler replacement project. Is that going to be you, Barry, or Hank to start?
I think Barry should start off on
Me?
this one.
So we're replacing 2 boilers. The 2 existing boilers that we're replacing over the past several years have been leaking. We've dumped a lot of money into keeping them going. So we employed GGD to come out and do a quick feasibility. They did the design for us. And we had our pre-bid walkthrough last week. The bid specs are ready to go out this week for bidding. We're replacing 3 and 4 with 2 high efficiency condensing boilers. And not hoping, we will have them done right now. All the indications are that these boilers are not long lead. These are 4 to 6 week items for lead time on once we execute the contract. So, substantial completion should be done by mid-September for the 2 replacement boilers. We still have 1 existing boiler, which is a fire tube cast iron boiler, a Smith, which is in the number 1 slot. So we do have one more existing boiler that eventually we will eliminate at some point in time and replace it with a 3rd. But right now we're looking at replacing 2 boilers. They're identical to each other. All the specifications are basically identical, aside from a couple distance changes on piping and electrical. So that's where we are right now. We're just waiting to get for Tyler to come back to put these boilers out to bid this week.
So originally, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, you were going to replace only 1 boiler, and then
Yes.
another one failed, and
Yeah.
you've cannibalized as many parts as you can,
Right.
to keep the number 1 boiler operating.
Yeah. So 1 boiler is going to be paid for out of the energy efficiency money, and the 2nd boiler will be paid out of my facility maintenance warrant article. So the total is right now with the estimates, it's just over 600,000.
Total for both.
Total for both, yeah.
So the committee, this would, because of that 2nd boiler, this went over that $500,000 threshold. So what I'm asking the committee tonight is to discuss and perhaps approve building maintenance department continuing through on the project that they've started so far.
Does the committee have any comments relative to, given it's over the 500,000 threshold for committee governance, any discussion relative to just keeping the same path or course that we're taking, which is let the maintenance department carry forward? George?
I have a question. I don't have a problem with them continuing. I guess my question is, since this really isn't a building, it's more maintenance and boiler replacement. Do we have to approve that? Now, if we do, I don't have a problem with having Barry's team do it. I guess my question is more protocol. Do we have to approve that?
I thought anything to do with the buildings that were over 500,000, I believe we have to, but.
Yeah, because it's a chapter 149, I think we have to.
Okay, all right.
Richard, were you looking to comment?
No, I think it's entirely appropriate to nest this project in building maintenance.
Okay. There's no more comments. I'll put forth a motion to.
Erwin has his hand raised.
Oh, thanks, Erwin. Okay, yep. I see
Yeah, I
that.
was just going to ask a question. I guess I should have waited for you to finish what you were saying. I'm just curious, did these boilers, were they at the end of their useful lives, or was there anything unanticipated about the time of their failure?
They are all 4 of them. There were 4 boilers that were installed about 18 years ago. I'm sorry, about 15 years ago. So they are at their, depends on the water quality. There's been some chemical deficiencies in the system. So, we got as much life out of them as possible, and we did dump a lot of money into trying to repair and replace. We did we initiated a chemical program for the water loop, and it's just the age and the operation of these boilers. They're running for so long, even again during the summertime for reheating purposes. So, they've reached their life expectancy. And we did everything we could to keep them alive.
These are the same, Barry, these are the same ones we had trouble with the gas company having low gas quantities feeding them.
Yeah, the
So
gas
we've been-
pressure issues at the street. Yes, correct.
And so we've been kind of band-aiding this stuff for years. So I'll be very happy to see 2 new
It
boilers.
is. And honestly, to be honest, I've been here for 5 years and that's really not enough time to really capture a lot of the things that are aging that have continued to run for year after year, all year long, 24/7. We did deploy a new asset management system, which was part of the School Dude system, but we have a better picture now of what we're looking at for big equipment replacement, and we're building that portfolio now. So we're not like looking at things that are failing now and that I'm looking at, replacing things next year, that we're going to have a better projection looking forward for, 3, 5, 10 years out. I mean, we're looking at, we have to start looking at, big pieces of equipment over at the High Rock that are getting to that point in time with this new asset management system. We're better able to kind of quantify all these pieces of equipment and start putting dates to them before they fail. Some of the
These are
equipment,
still, right, these are still gas boilers.
yeah, these are gas boilers, correct. Yeah, it would take quite a bit of air source technology to heat the high school. We don't have that technology right now, or the room to put these systems in. So this is the direction we're going is the most efficient gas fired boilers that we can get our hands on.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, with that, then I'll put forth a motion to, Erwin, you got another question?
Yeah, just a follow
ahead.
up on the water quality. Is that going to be ongoing issue with the new boilers or boilers in general, or was it just unique to the high
No,
school?
it was an aging system as well, Erwin. We have upgraded the system and put digital controls on it. We've also have a company that now monitors the chemical levels in the system. So we're constantly feeding new chemicals in, and we're doing water quality testing for caustics and things like that do erode the interior of boilers and pipes. So we have upgraded that system. And before we put these boilers online, we'll do a complete loop flush, and we'll do a complete clean of the system itself. We'll literally, they call it pickle the pipes, but we're also going to remove any debris. We'll put it through a filtration system as well, and get out any type of particulates, metal, things like that. So that's a part of the project itself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll put forth a motion to approve the continuation of the building group to continue with the boiler replacement. I think I got that right. If anybody has better wording, please jump in. If that's acceptable.
Can I just add, it'd be nice to get an update, since these are pretty significant dollars. No, part of it was.
Yeah,
part of
so
Barry's budget.
we'll put
Nice
forth
to
a
just get an
motion
update as to what's going on.
to enable the building maintenance group to continue with the boiler replacement, requesting regular updates.
You got it.
You guys good with that? Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll call. Richard,
aye.
George,
Aye,
Erwin,
Aye,
Roy,
Aye.
Barry.
I don't think we formally have appointees on this one, so I think it's just the committee.
Okay, just committee and the chair's eye. Okay. With that, I think we've done with this topic. Yep. Okay, great. Go to the last of the 4 main topics, which is the Town Finance Committee Housing Oversight Committee. I'll ask Hank to overview it. I hope you all had a chance to pick up on some of the communications on this. But Hank, if you can just clarify for the committee.
Yeah, and I I really defer to the town manager on this. As you may recall, there was discussion during the past year that there are some very large projects that are coming down the pike for the Needham Housing Authority. And the consensus from FinCom and Select Board and others seemed to be that they wanted some expertise to assist in the overview, or I should say, in an advisory capacity to the Select Board to oversee the public funding that's going into those projects. And there already, I think there's $2 million of CPA funding that has already been committed from prior town meetings, and likely to be more as they proceed into construction on those expansions. The Oversight Committee would include one member from the PPPC, either a current member or a prior member. And let's see, one member from FinCom, one from Select Board, I think 2 committee at large from the community, and I'm not quite sure who else, but each committee is supposed to recommend their representative.
Mr. Chair.
So I'm going to.
Richard,
Yeah.
The question.
Go ahead.
hold on a second, George.
Who recognizing? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would just add that Hank and I attended a meeting with a couple members of the Select Board and the CPC, et cetera. You were not able to attend that meeting, you recall, Mr. Chair, and I think there was some question as to why we were asked in the first place to participate. But I think as the discussion unfolded, became quite clear that certainly having municipal side guidance for projects being undertaken by a housing authority is very, very much appropriate, and I think would be the town would be well served by having that committee. So I fully support the concept, and I do hope for an affirmative vote on this.
Right, George, you had some comments?
I think, yeah, so I have a question that is kind of opening up a can of worms here, but so are these buildings essentially being paid for by the town of Needham?
No, I think the majority of the funding will be coming through HUD and other state and federal sources, but it certainly is supplemented by housing money from the CPA. Whether
So
they,
why-
excuse me,
Go ahead. ahead.
whether they need to come to town meeting for any additional funding, I don't think they've determined that yet. The master plan, which I think was part of the link or is certainly available on the Needham Housing Authority website, calls for both total reconstruction of the single-story units that are across from the field from High Rock School. Those would be demolished, and a 2.5-story building would be constructed. The number of units, I think, in that building would be both studios and 1-bedrooms. The number of units would nearly double, and to be a much more efficient footprint. And then by doing that first phase, it would allow them to then demolish the other half of the units there and put in a similar 2.5-story building. So overall, they would more than double the affordable housing available within the town. And there is, as I understand it, quite a backlog in terms of requests for that housing. In addition to that, on their master plan, they are looking to refurbish other units, upgrade those, particularly in terms of HVAC and insulation. So doing those things that are being recommended by Mass Save and the state to improve the energy efficiency of those other, in large part, I think they're townhouses and single family. The phasing of the various projects will largely depend upon their ability to get grant funding. And they are currently have as an advisor the Cambridge Housing Authority, who have gone through project management and grant funding applications on numerous projects in Cambridge, and have over the years developed a staff and an expertise in that regard. I know that Reg Foster has also expressed an interest to make these extremely energy efficient, not only meet the new specialized code, but potentially put in ground source heat pumps. And that is certainly the wave of the future, but it will largely depend on their ability to secure other federal funding, I think, for those types of improvements.
Mr. Chair, for me,
This team, this committee's expertise in construction, I think would certainly benefit them in an advisory capacity.
Mr. Chair, I would add that Cambridge Housing Authorities, I understand, has also advised other housing authorities in the state and other, beyond their own scope. So certainly they have the expertise to certainly project manage other communities' projects. And I just want to make sure that was noted for the record as well.
And the architect that they're currently working with is not unfamiliar to they're working with BH+A, and BH+A has a different team who has specific experience in housing, public housing.
And one other comment, Mr. Chair, if I may, and that is that the Cambridge Housing Authority does very much agree, and actually, I think they certainly support the notion of having a town side committee to help oversee the project.
Any,
So I'm gonna go back to my other question. Part of the reason for setting up the PPBC in the past was to ensure efficiency of building design projects from start to finish. And I'm not saying we're the only game in town that could oversee a building project, but what makes as the town meeting member, I wonder, do they really have the expertise to do this the way the PPBC might do it? And is there some uniqueness that we should just allow them to do this and oversee a project that's above the amount that we like to give away to other people? So I'm wondering, why wouldn't PPBC be even more involved than just be on an advisory committee?
Richard, maybe you can answer the legal framework.
Well,
As I understand it, the Needham Housing Authority is a separate entity.
correct.
Has separate funding, separate regulations, property ownership, and they maintain all their buildings currently.
I think also from a liability perspective, I think you want to maintain the separateness of the housing authority from the town. Basically, this committee's role, this kind of committees being proposed with various representatives, including PVC, is really just to make sure that the town's interests are protected, that the project does not run amok and could cause potential liability issues for the town. But I would think that if we as a committee took a deeper role, I think there it would raise some liability issues up for the town side. So we want to avoid that.
I guess I don't quite understand that part.
The town's funding is really a minority share of the gross funding, as I understand it.
Yes.
Well,
And
It's not our project. That's the
I
bottom
understand.
line, George. It's not a PVC project. It's not a town project. It's the housing authority, which is separate, is a separate entity, not part of town government.
And
They are
and,
independent and they have, they requested funds as any other independent organization might, for CPC qualifying funds.
Okay, have they had any history of building projects on time and under budget?
Let's say,
I think it's been a number of years since they've done any major construction. So I'm not aware of their, in fact, the housing that would be most recently constructed probably is down past St. Mary Street Pump Station. And I think that was done in the 80s.
yes,
And the housing that they're replacing across from High Rock School was probably constructed after the war, early
yes.
50s.
So who's going to be project manager for something like this? Will they assign a project manager?
I believe that the OPM will be the Cambridge Housing Authority staff.
Yes,
So we'll have to pay, someone will have to pay them to do that work.
well, out of the project.
Out of their total
Project cost.
project budget, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. I certainly think it would be of value to have a PPVC member on this advisory committee. No question about it.
With that, if there's no other questions, I think we should be proposing that group, correct, Hank?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to step forward. Volunteer somebody else.
I'd like to
Yeah.
volunteer Erwin. Erwin, did you hear that?
Oh, I heard it. Throw
And
it
your,
out.
and your response, Erwin?
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
I think you'd be great on it.
Thank you.
And you looking for one person, Hank, or more than one?
Just one
Okay,
is all that was requested. And
Okay.
and Erwin, I think your knowledge of energy and energy efficiency and all of that would be very valuable advice that they need.
okay.
You know when this is anticipated to start?
Um,
When this committee will be
sometime this
formed?
fall.
Okay,
But the each of the advisory committee members needs to be appointed by their respective groups. So I think it'll come together by the fall. I believe that we need a vote. Or it wouldn't hurt to have a vote.
Well, I was gonna say, if there's no proposed Erwin, if there's no objection, so be it, but we need a formal vote, we can do that.
I think it would be advisable to inform the vote.
Okay, all right. So then we will put forth a motion to propose Erwin as the PVC member representation in the Finance Community Housing Oversight Committee. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you, Richard. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
aye.
George,
I,
Erwin,
aye,
Roy,
I will support Erwin.
thank you, Roy.
and the chair is aye. Okay,
Right.
Fabulous. And with that, we'll just go to other business, which is essentially just the project. And if you could, if I could just ask you, Hank, just to highlight a few things. I don't think we need to go through in detail unless others request it. I think we just need to know if there's any major changes or any, I would ask, any key dates this committee should focus on in the next couple months.
Well, one thing in terms of the next meeting, there'll probably only be two topics, agenda items at our next meeting on the 10th of July. And that will be Emery Grover, which will have the normal pay app and change order. And Ken has been working over the contractor on all of the potential change orders. So we hope to have a number of those concluded. Then the other discussion will be around the DPW feasibility plan. You had mentioned some interest in having a meeting in person. I don't know whether that's helpful, necessary. Catherine, I don't know if we still have a room reserved as a reserve.
At the library.
At the library.
I don't think there's any major working topic. Emery Grover and DPW are certainly important, but I think we're all well ingrained with it. So I don't think I'm not hearing any major issues that we've got to work through.
And with what they will be coming back with are some, we've had several working group meetings with each of the division heads at the DPW. And town manager participated in the last one, and they have gone through the programmatic analysis, and now they're beginning to look at test fits on various sites. And so this discussion will be focusing on those test fits and where potential parts of the DPW could go. Unlike the last study, while they did do one programmatic option that you saw the last time that consolidated everyone on one site, it's more likely that there'll be pieces, divisions, some of whom will remain on 470 and PSAP area, and others would be relocated to other sites. So that's what the discussion will focus on at that next meeting. And they will be able to share their screen and walk you through those options. And we'll have a slideshow to send around in advance of the meeting as well.
Any objections to a full Zoom versus hybrid? Okay.
None.
Okay, I don't see anything. So we'll continue on with
Okay, great.
remote. Okay.
And other than that, we've wrapped up the CAF study, and now they're looking at how that will factor into their 5-year plan. Library will come back to the committee once we have the cost estimates completed and some idea of what those priority projects would be. And that will likely be in mid-August. And likewise, after this test fit meeting in mid-August, I'd anticipate that Weston and Sampson will come back with a bit more detail and potentially some of the cost estimates for the DPW projects. And we will keep you apprised on the 24th of July. We'll come back to get PBBC approval for the pre-qualified HVAC firms. That process will start and be complete within that month, and then immediately go out to bidding. So the attempt to award that project is by the end of August. Allowing for hopefully long enough lead time to do the work the following summer. The only other thing I'll mention, even though it's not a PBBC project, is that we are proceeding with the SAC 1 projects in the Newman Theater and the high school theater. We did get only one bidder coming back to do the work, Major Theater Equipment Corp. And we're working through their schedule now to do those urgent repairs in those two theaters relative to the rigging. And we'll likely be replacing the Pollard main curtain. But because those projects are below the dollar threshold for this committee, it'll just be, I will assist the building maintenance department, but we'll be coordinating through building maintenance and the school committee or the school department, who will be funding that project or those projects. And then there'll be, for the remainder of the projects that came out of that study, they'll be looking again at potential funding at the end of next year for the SAC 2 projects, but otherwise capital funding within the 5-year plan for the lighting and sound upgrades. I think that's it. I did forward a link to the town website for a survey related to climate action plan things. And if you haven't already done so, it would be great if you could take that survey, participate in that.
Okay. Great. Anything else? Catherine, I just tried to double check the invoices. I think we covered all the invoices.
Yes, we did.
Okay. And all the projects. Okay. Thanks, Hank. I think this has been helpful. Consistently going through this. Hopefully everybody feels the same, but I think it's important to know what the overall projects are and where some of our big points of decision and effort is. Okay. Any other business from anybody else? Seen no. Yeah.
Barry,
George?
is Barry still here with us?
Yes.
Yes,
Barry, do you have
I
any
was
time
eating.
tomorrow? Do you have any time tomorrow morning? I have a quick question to ask you offline.
Yes,
You want to call me?
I can call you. Yeah, absolutely.
Call me on my cell.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I would like to draw a close to the meeting. If there's no objection, I hereby declare end of the meeting. Have a great week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for everybody's time.
Thank you.